Hey guys, good to see you again. There we go. Turn the microphone on, dummy. Glad to see you again. Glad you're here for our program. This is Saab Talk Live, the only weekly webcast streamed live on Facebook and on YouTube, focusing on things for the Saab community. And Mark, welcome to the program, buddy.
Hello, everyone. Today's show is going to be talking to a gentleman who took a cross-country tour in a vintage Saab, which we're going to ask him how in the heck he did that and how it felt along the way. Good Lord, it's got to be quite a undertaking to go that distance in a car, the Saab Sonnet. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
This is not the Ed Lorenz Saab. This is Jacob Pretzman took a test drive in a Sonnet and included it in one of his videos that he was good enough to let us borrow here. But hey, this is a Saab's rendition of a sports car, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that tonight, Mark.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it because the Sonnet vehicle, I've seen them around. I've seen them at the owners convention. It's still a little bit of a mystery for me, so I'm glad to hear more about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested in these cars as well, so we'll check that out and figure out a little more about that. Before we get to that, though, I always like to bring to the program kind of an interesting stuff that I find out there on the internet, and this one caught my eye. Check this out. I found this on Saab Planet. Do you have any idea what that is, Mark?
Well, I kind of know because you told me, but firsthand, I would not know at all what this thing is because it looks like a smorgasbord of different car parts kind of glued together with plexiglass and paint, and I wouldn't know where to begin what to call this thing.
This is a Saab 93 that somebody found on the streets of Cuba. So, of course,
wow.
Down in Cuba, there's been a ban on imported cars for, quite some time. So they just kind of make do. And look at that. So these are this is a website, Auto Junk, out of the Netherlands. And I'm pretty sure NL is Netherlands. And boy, look at that. What a cool piece of custom work this thing is. Isn't that bizarre?
Wow. I mean, I wish I could see under the hood of this thing. I've heard stories about them using any engine they can get their hands on. I've heard them using forklift engines to put into cars to keep them on the road.
Mm-hmm.
It's stories like that I've heard about, the vehicles in that area. So I can only imagine what in the world they've done to this particular 93. I'm sure it had some stories to tell.
So if you want to find that, go to autojunk.nl, and there you will find this Saab 93 that has been pretty heavily modified down there in the streets of Cuba. All right, well, let's get back to the main topic tonight, and that is to introduce a guy that we both met up at Saab Owners Club, and Ed Lorenz. Welcome to the program.
How are we doing? Good evening, everyone.
Hey, glad you're here. So you've been a Saab guy for years and years and years, and one of the things that I know you're involved in is promoting the Vert Fest at the Rhinebeck Aerodrome. So before we start talking about your cross-country trip in your Sonnet, let's take a moment. You can tell us about what happens at Vert Fest up there at the airport.
Sure. Well, basically, I've been a groupie at the Aerodrome, the Rhinebeck Aerodrome, it started life back in 1957, I believe, and became the world's largest collection of privately owned vintage, basically pre-1920 aircraft that they'd actually still fly. As a matter of fact, they have the second oldest flying plane in the world, which is a 1909 Valerio, which is only about 2 weeks older than the oldest flying plane in the world, which is another Valerio in England. But anyway, I've been a groupie there. I got started with my father and everything back in 1966. I used to work there back in 1971, the summer of 71. And with my son and everything, he got into it, and so we go every year at least once, sometimes 5 or 6 times a year to do various things. So it's a fun place, and they put on the air shows on Saturdays and Sundays. The Vert Fest event that we have for Saabs is going to be September 19th. We start off, just filling up the area between the hangars with Saab convertibles, we hope. So it's a good time just to get together with people, hang out, and then we have the air show at 2:00 in the afternoon. Most people will get there probably about 10 o'clock in the morning, and the air show gets over about 4 o'clock. And so it's a fun-filled day all day long. They have biplane rides. You can go up in a 1925 New Standard, which is a plane that was built in, no, it was 1927 actually, but it was actually built for carrying passengers and everything. And that's a good time for only $100, which seems like a lot, but it's great cheap thrills.
Oh yeah, when are you going to get that chance again? So on the screen, Ed, we're having a little technical problem. Ed can't see what we're showing all of you, but on the screen, Ed, is a picture of a bunch of the back ends of Saab convertibles there, just all of them in a row from one of the previous. That shot?
I probably do. I've probably seen them all. This is the third year that we've done this. Rhinebeck, New York is located just below Albany, so it's easily accessible from Boston, New England, New York City, Philadelphia, DC, western part of New York. If they can make it here, even Toronto and Montreal. So we've always figured, geez, there's got to be a whole pile of convertibles. But we usually get about 40 of them here. This year, it's hard to say, of course, but we seem to have a lot of people talking about it. A lot of people quite excited about the event. So who knows? Maybe we'll do a whole lot better this year. We're hoping so. More the better.
So Ed, I'm looking at these pictures of the different ones that Lee's putting up, and I see a lot of 900s. Are there only 900s here, or is it other convertibles from other years as well?
Oh, it's all Saab convertibles.
Okay, gotcha.
From 86 on up to the very end. So I don't know why you just have just the classics, but all of them are invited. Matter of fact, this year on our little flyer that we had, which I don't have one nearby to show you, but I want, in the previous years, I've always used my car, the 86, and I wanted to get something different. It was a hard time getting coordinated with someone to get there. So there's a diner in downtown Oneonta, New York, which is where I'm from. And the waitress there, she has, I don't know, what is it, an 09 900? So I stopped in there, or a 93. So I stopped in there and asked her, hey, what are you doing on your day off? Ever go over to the Hudson Valley? No. You want to? Well, yeah. Well, why? Well, I want to get a picture. Oh, sure, I'll go. So she drove, the 90 or 100 miles over there just to get this picture taken. And she has a beautiful white 09 93. So that's what is the feature car this year.
Oh, nice. How nice. That's great.
That's awesome.
Worked out well.
Well, listen,
and she's going to be there too.
Very well. One of the reasons that I wanted to connect with you is because of your long history in the Saab world, and we can kind of see that there in your garage. You've got that beautiful green 99 beside you there.
Yes. And here it is.
That side, yeah. and your silver 900, and then is there a white 900 back behind you there?
There's a white 900 3-door in back here.
Cool.
And if you can see, there's the 6696. One thing you cannot see because it's dark and you're in it. Oh, I have a carport over on the side here where my wife, she has her, an 02 93, the last of the OG 93s in the garage underneath the house, which you also cannot see. But just so happens I got the, what's in there? The 0493, that's our car for nice trips in the summer and stuff. And then also the 74 Sonnet. And what's not on the premises is the 95 9000, which we're working on a brake issue with that. So hopefully that we'll have that back next week, we hope.
Oh my goodness. All those carports and garages. I mean, someone's going to have a barn find there around that someplace somewhere. I mean,
there's, I wish I had more garage space, but
don't we all?
It's standard problem.
Well, okay, so we wanted.
I forgot to mention my son. He has a 2009 3 also, but he lives in Florida. So,
Oh, gotcha.
And we want to talk about your Sonnet, and
Sure.
this is the one that you drove. How many miles was it actually now?
Oh, I think this trip total, when I added it up when I got home, came out to something stupid like 3,467 miles.
Only 3,400.
Well, I'm happy to talk about the trips in the Sonnet and everything. But you look at Ray Kay. He's the editor of the Vintage Saab Club newsletter. Does a great job with that.
Yep.
And he drove his from Albany, Oregon to Albany, New York this summer and back. His two-stroke.
As a matter of fact, Ray's going to be joining us next week, I think, is the date.
Wonderful.
So
but he did a great job. And of course, there's Larry Williams, who used to drive to conventions all over the place in Sadie. What was that? 62, 96. So, and lately too, it seems, I don't know why, but it seems like I've been seeing a lot of people with classic 900s going on long distance trips. So, these are just cars, and as long as you take reasonably good care of them, it was good solid engineering in the day. It still is today too. So they're made to be driven. Go out and have a good time with it. Go somewhere. They might be nice cars, and I don't want to beat on them too badly or anything. I try to take care of them and stuff, but enjoy them.
Well, you certainly did. So here you are. You drove this from where you lived there in New York up to Newfoundland and back.
Yep.
And so this car, I understand, is not real comfortable for that kind of a drive, though. Tell me more about that.
It is terrible. I've owned the car since 1984. I've done a lot of trips in it. Matter of fact, it's been up to Newfoundland, I don't know, about 4 or 5 times, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
And my son and I, we did a trip up around the Gaspé of Upper Quebec one year. So it's been up there a number of times. It's a very fun car. Don't get me wrong. But it is kind of a terrible car too, because it's uncomfortable. It's loud. I always wear earplugs. There's no place for your arms after a while. There's no place for your feet. And if it gets dark, not that I really drive it much at night, just for this reason, but you really have a hard time seeing the instruments. You're not really lit up well.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of reflections in the windshield and everything. Fortunately, it's a very fun car.
So I don't know a whole lot about Sonnets at all. Do you know the history? You can take us all the way back to the Sonnet 1?
Yeah, don't quote me on the exact years, but somewhere back in the mid 1950s, it was an unofficial project by some people who had this idea at Saab, who built these 6 sonnets in a barn away from prying eyes, because it was not an official Saab project. And they built these things, and 2 of them are still actually here in North America, I guess. A couple, the rest of them are all, I guess they've all survived, which is pretty amazing, that all 6.
Awesome.
And that project never really got the Saab upper echelon terribly excited, so it didn't never go anywhere. Eventually, they came out with the Sonnet 2, which was, the Sonnet 1 was the one back in the 50s. In the 60s, they came out with the Sonnet 2, which were their 2 different design proposals of about 1966, I guess, and they narrowed it down to 1. And that was a very interesting car, a 2-stroke engine in it and stuff. A lot of people were kind of scratching their heads about 2-strokes even at that point. I think Saab at that time was in the process of working on the V4, so it became then the Sonnet V4. There's a lot of people call it a Sonnet 2 V4. Well, there really is no such thing in Saab's nomenclature. They just went from the Sonnet 2 to a Sonnet V4, and that lasted few years, I guess. And then in 1970, they came out with the Sonnet 3, which was a redesigned body on it. It was a little bit more up to date, I guess, a little bit snappier styling, that kind of stuff. They're both great cars. They're both very iconic. They're both a lot of fun, but they are different, certainly in terms of how they look. They both have the same engine, the V4 engine. The Sonnet V4 had the column shift lever, the four speed on the column. The Sonnet 3 had the regular floor shift. But they're all basically the same car, really. So.
Well, I've got up on the screen right now. I'm going to put up on the screen. Here it goes. A video that I found from a website here called Virtual U Drive. And here's a guy driving a 1973 Sonnet. So this is very much like yours, Ed. So while we talk a little bit more about these cars, we'll just let this video roll. Mark, you had something you wanted to throw in there?
Yeah, I was kind of curious about what model Sonnet was Ed's car, because I know we talked about all these different models between the 60s, 70s, and so on.
Yeah. But mine is a 74, a Sonnet 3, which is the last year that they built them. They made the Sonnet 3s from 70 to 74, and I got the last year. And just for a fun little thing, the way I came about the car here in Oneonta, there's a little convenience store back in, it's still there actually, but back in 82, 83, I was walking down the street and there's a woman in there putting gas in the car, so, wow, Sonnet, that's pretty cool. I thought they were neat in those days. So I walked around it a couple times and she kind of noticed me eyeballing her car. And she goes, "Hey, you want to buy it?" So I walked around it again, didn't say anything, and came back and said, yeah, I think I would. We can talk about it. No, I was only joking. I don't want to sell. I don't want to sell. I was only joking. Oh, well, here, let me give you my name and phone number in case you ever do want to sell it. And she, laughingly took that and everything. And about a year later, I get a phone call from this person. Now, you probably don't remember me, but I was at the Busy Bee there getting gas about a year ago in a Saab Sonnet, and you expressed an interest in buying it. You still want to buy that thing? And it turns out that over the winter, she was down in Pennsylvania and went off the road in a snowstorm up on top of the snowbank and ripped off the floor of the trunk and everything. Of course, the rocker panels in 10 years were already completely rusted. So, I bought the car, and I've had it ever since 1984. So
how about that?
And I've kind of gone through the car, so I can take it on trips and stuff like that. So it gets me from A to B.
Hey, I forgot. Thank you guys so much for reminding me. You can post comments and we'll share them with the audience. So yeah, use the chat. Tanya is saying there seems to be two different pronunciations: sonnet, or is it sonnet? Do you know which it is, Ed?
You are pronouncing it the right way from what I have heard. Sonnet.
Sonnet.
I pronounce it because how to have it sonnet. Just me. That's the way it's not the right pronunciation, but I'm trying to reform myself. Give me some more time. I'm getting slightly better.
The one thing I wanted to glance back to real quick is that you mentioned in your conversation when you bought this car, the poor lady had get off a snowbank and it got really beat up. I was just curious, how bad was the damage when you got it?
Oh, well, as you may know, or may not, but for example, like the battery in the Sonnet sits on the bottom of the trunk by the spare tire underneath a plywood cover. Well, she ripped out the whole bottom of the trunk there. So the battery was sitting up on top of the plywood and carpet, holes drilled in it to keep it from flopping around. And once you lift it up, oh, look, there's the road. So, and like I say, Sonnets in those days were terrible for rust. I remember some old newsletters I have them right up here from the New England Sonnet Club from 1980. Keep in mind, these cars were only 10 to 6 years old. And it's amazing the people in there talking about how badly the things are rusting out, how I can fix this, how can I fix it. And so rust prevention was not a real big thing with them in those days.
Yeah. Now, I think we ought to make it clear to everybody, though, that we're talking about rust in the underneath and the structural because they're all fiberglass bodies, right?
The fiberglass body, but the full floor pan is sheet metal.
Right.
And, just the way they made the seams and the thickness and everything else, it just created all kinds of problems, I guess.
So you've got a Ford V4 engine out front in this model. The earlier versions were actually 2 cycles.
Absolutely.
And check this out. I found Tom Donnie. Here's video of Tom firing up an old 2-cycle for the first time in 20 years. So here's a 2-cycle Sonnet. Let's take a listen to what's going on here. And of course, as soon as I say that, the video freezes. Let's do this again. So anyway, so there's Tom working on a 2-cycle Sonnet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
First time in quite a
Liquid
while.
cooled, no less.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. So how do these things drive? Do they, it seems like they're going to be a lot of understeer and kind of slow and clunky. Are they very responsive? How do they feel?
Well, you're asking the wrong person there. I've never really explored the road holding qualities of my car. There are some much better examples of what a Sonnet could do than what mine is. I have a friend of mine up in upstate New York, a little bit further north, who rebuilt a Sonnet, and I'm very much looking forward to going for a ride in his car sometime to see what a Sonnet really feels like in terms of an engine that really works, and suspension that goes up and down, and tires that stick on the road, and brakes that work. These are all things that are, sometimes they work on my car. Well, they work kind of like 95% of capacity, but maybe 90%. But it'd be nice to see like a real 100% car. It would be exciting. So
That would be fun.
I've never had that.
So what's the reaction when you're out driving this thing, like up there on the dirt roads in Newfoundland? Are people surprised?
Well, now let's back up here a little bit. On this particular trip that I just did, which is kind of representative of all the trips I have done up there over the years. Basically, I drive up, leave our house, get on I-88, get over to the New York Thruway, to the Mass Pike, and then start heading up I-95 up into Maine. And then once I get to the New Brunswick border, I'll get on the provincial roads, I guess, which are quite nice. A lot of them now going across New Brunswick, basically that's all 4-lane road. It's all new.
Okay.
And you can fly on those things if you have a car that's capable of that. So they're very nice roads. There just isn't anything really there. There's not a whole lot of people like we have in the States. There's no such thing as traffic. When you get into Nova Scotia, probably, maybe 2/3 of the way, again, you're on 4-lane road, which are great. Nice, smooth, nice roads. And then you get on the 2-lane roads going out to Cape Breton and out to North Sydney, which is where the ferries come in and out of Newfoundland. And that's pretty much a nice road. It's 2-lane. Sometimes they'll have a climbing lane, stuff like that, but it's a nice road. Now, when we get to Newfoundland, most of the roads there are paved. Sometimes they're not paved really well. Sometimes there are some roads up there. There's one road in particular I'm thinking of way down the southeastern corner of Newfoundland. There's another road up in Labrador that are probably the worst paved roads I've ever been on. It's amazing how big the potholes are and how many of them. And this road down in the corner of Newfoundland, when I was on that, I guess I had the convertible on that trip, but it was kind of strange. Right through that really bad section, I went by about 3 or 4, probably 3 people who were on the side of the road changing tires for some reason. I don't know why. You got to watch where you go. You got to go slow. There are a few dirt roads. I went to a campground up above Deer Lake, which is in the central part of the province on this trip, and I knew what I was kind of getting into, but it was off of the, if you want to call it the main road, which is a nice 2-lane road. And then I got on the secondary road, which is like around here, we call it a back road, but it was paved. That's nice. And, I wasn't going real fast anyway. And that went on for about 15 miles. And then the last 10 miles to the campground were all this dirt road with a lot of gravel, with a lot of dust. And I was there in second gear, just trying to keep the dust to a minimum. With the Sonnet, the way body panels fit and everything, you kick up a fair amount of dust. And of course, the back wheels, it just brings it through the body panels into the back of the car. Everything was covered with dust. When I got there, it was kind of disgusting looking. But some of the other roads there, even some of the better roads, as I've noticed, I did have a problem with my rear tires, in that I knew that they would bottom out every now and then, but I always keep my tires at the right pressure and stuff. I'd never really gotten down to look how much tread was on them. And after at dirt road section, the next morning, I went back to Deer Lake, and I had asked where a car wash was. It was right on my way. So I stopped there. I'm hosing off the car, get all done, and hosing off the bottom of the car, and just happened to see the driver's side rear tire, and looked at that, and they're really wasn't much tread on that thing. And I thought, oh, maybe I better look at the passenger side. So I went, oh, geez, that's even worse. Ooh. And basically what happens up in Newfoundland, a lot of the roads will have these dips in them. And after a while, I've learned in my trips, believe it or not, I do try to avoid these things. Sometimes you just can't. Now, I don't go all that fast. I'm probably going probably 50 miles an hour. You don't want to go much faster anyway because the scenery's so nice. But you'd see these black spots in the dips, and that's where probably the tractor trailers, when they hit those things, I guess they bottom out and it locks up the wheel for that split second. Well, I think that's what I was doing too. When the suspension bottomed into the bottom of the car, that's what was wearing down the tires. So,
oh wow!
I've never noticed that before. But we made it home. So,
oh, that's great. So
and some of the other roads up there are just, some of the roads are brand new. A lot of the roads that they have, certainly in Labrador too, they've just built. It's amazing to think they've just built these roads in the past 5 years or so. Before that, they're dirt roads. 3 years ago, I did my trip across Labrador with the convertible, and there's a section of road from Happy Valley, Goose Bay down to the coast, which is probably about 225 miles, and then I took about a 50-mile side trip, and that was all on these dirt gravel roads. That's how they live up there.
So your 47-year-old car.
There's nothing in between.
So your 47-year-old car, did anything break? I mean, the tire issue, but anything else go wrong on this car?
No. Like I say, they're in their day. Believe it or not, they were good, basic, solidly engineered and constructed cars. The engine is still used as a Ford industrial engine, so that will probably run forever. I did on one of the trips. I did run into some guy. He and his friend were looking at the car on the ferry or something, or waiting in line to get on the ferry. And he was talking in this very broken English that they use up there that, that's the same engine we use for the log splitters or something up in the woods. We just run these things wide open all day long, You just can't kill these things. And he's right. I do not drive it real hard for other reasons too, but they're good cars. And I really don't think I've had any mechanical issues for the 5 or 6 trips I've done with the Sonnet. So,
hey, let's take a second and check in with people who are posting comments here.
Oh, of course.
Here's somebody who says, I've added a turbo and fuel injected it since 1983. I did. Wow, a turbo in this thing.
That's probably Todd Cogshell, I believe.
It is.
He has a great car. He used to live up near Rochester, New York, and I see him every now and then. He's a great guy, but he engineered the whole thing himself, did a very nice job on it, and it's a great car, and he does a fair amount of miles in that thing. So it has the proven reliability to it too, which is nice. Also, I guess Dave Hosmer, I believe, and Bud Clark built a turboed Sonnet. I think Bud probably did most of the work, the engine work. Bud Clark in California, Dave Hosmer was in Connecticut, and they built this for Walter Kern, who we have named the Walter Kern Award after.
Yep.
Walter was living up in Massachusetts, great Saab guy, all this kind of stuff, like building his own things. But he built one, and also Bud has one too. Matter of fact, Bud actually won the Walter Kern Award at the California convention about 3 years ago. So there might be more, but I certainly know of 3 of them in existence.
So Tim Winker, who was on the program recently, says sonnet is the Swedish phrase for so neat. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. That's I understand.
That's right. That's right.
That's nifty.
Like I said, I do have to practice on my pronunciation.
Well, I'm glad I'm learning. I'm certainly no Saab expert here. It's great to have the tribal knowledge passed along from all of us here. So, what are your plans for this car? We can stop watching this guy drive his. Although I think it's kind of interesting to watch him motor that thing around. What are your plans for this car, Ed? What are you going to do with it from here?
Well, I'll probably wash it. I vacuum it out every now and then. I don't have any great plans. I do have a spare motor in the back of the garage here, and the original intention was to build a new engine for it. I rebuilt this engine back in 85, 86, something like that, and it could probably stand to use a little bit of freshening up. I should probably get into replacing one of the fiber timing gear that's on the front of the engine. They do make a nicer aluminum gear with the steel gear sets to go work with it. The original fiber gear did have a tendency to shear off teeth, which is something I think about when I'm up there in the middle of nowhere, up in Labrador or Quebec or something.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to find, you might find parts up there because it's just that skid steer engine, that Ford industrial engine these days. So you might actually be able to find parts, but it wouldn't be fun. So I am thinking about it. But that's about it for what I do. When I got back from this trip, I was thinking about the things I had to do. One of the things I did when I got back, on the door lock, not that I ever locked the car, but on the door lock has to cover up where you put the key in, has that little door, I guess, that you slide, rotate so you can put the key in. And I noticed that morning at 4 o'clock in the morning as I'm leaving, I noticed, this thing's kind of falling out. So I pulled the rest of that and threw it between the seats and sat there for the whole trip. When I got home, I figured out a good way to stick it in there, bend it a little bit to put some more tension on it. I think that was about all I had to do for the car for the trip.
Wow.
But before I do these trips, I usually, I change the oil, I change the coolant, I grease up the joints, tighten things up. Have a wrench in the glove box for tightening up the header clamps, because they sometimes loosen up if you hit something especially. But very minor stuff. I do not bring a whole lot of spare parts with me because I have no idea what to bring. All things probably could fail on the car, but I have no idea what they could be. I think just on Facebook the other day, and I could be wrong about this, I just remember it quickly glancing at, but I think Jordan Pagano, who's a great 99 and 900 person, somebody asked him about what he brings on trips. He's a brilliant engineer, diagnostic, all that kind of stuff. For these cars, and I don't bring anything because how do you know what's going to break? That's my feeling too. So,
there was a post.
I try to bring a decent spare tire with me, but that's about it.
There was a post earlier today that really kind of spoke to that. Somebody said, it doesn't matter because whatever you bring, what's going to break is not anything that's in the trunk. So
right, absolutely.
What's the difference?
Probably 3 years ago. I did a trip across the Trans-Labrador Highway. You take about 150-mile dirt road up through Quebec, and then you get on a little bit of about 300 miles of paved road in Labrador. Then you get on the dirt road for 225 miles. But anyway, I got back into Quebec and with the 86 convertible, and I was leaving that morning and just died. And I couldn't figure it out. And turns out, I was talking with Jonathan Williams about it, scratching my head because what am I going to do? And he suggested me talking to Felix La Montagne, I think it is, up in Jonquière, Quebec, which turns out was only about 160 miles away. Believe it or not, I had the car flatbedded up there, and we had been talking a little bit on the phone. He does not know. He knows about as much English as I know French. So we were having a hard time there. But anyway, we got the car up there, got it off the flatbed, and in the space of 15 minutes, he's rummaging around looking for the part that he thinks he needs. He's also in back showing me his cars that he's working on, which were great cars that he's done. He's another one of these people that's pretty amazing what he does with the 900s. And then he starts working on my car. And in the space of that 15 minutes of pulling the car off the trailer, the car fired right up. And what that was that ignition control module up on the left front fender here. Yep. And well, who would have thought of that? One of those things going bad. So actually I have a spare, because they're small, at least I have a spare one now in the glove boxes of the two 900s.
That's a good thing to do.
It'll probably never happen again, but
no, now that you're ready for it, it probably won't.
That's right.
Exactly.
But
right.
They're small and light, easy to throw in the glove box.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's about the only part I bring.
Well, Ed, I have enjoyed talking with you. We like to keep these things to about 30 minutes, and we've gone there. So let's put a cap on it. I really appreciate your time here.
We can go for another 3 or 4 hours.
Well, we'll have you back. We'll do it again. How's that?
We'll go ahead and meet in a pub. We'll go ahead and talk over a pint. How about that?
Sure. We'll make it into a full-length motion picture or something.
Right?
Well, congratulations. I hope your event coming up, the Vert Fest coming up here September 19th at Rhinebeck Rhinebeck Airport
Aerodrome at Rhinebeck, New York. It's on the Hudson River. If you have a convertible anywhere nearby within about a 250-mile radius, it's a nice drive for the day. As long as you don't get stuck in Tappan Zee traffic on the way home going south or something. But it's a great time. It's a lot of fun. It actually is fun for the entire family. You're never going to see anything like this in the world. All this old stuff flying around and everything. So it's a great time. And we'll have fun with Saabs too.
All good.
And also, if you do not have a convertible, you're more than welcome to show up anyway. Just tell them at the ticket booth that you do have a Saab. You're there with the Saab group, and you get the discounted rate of $20 a person to get in. And there will be people over on the other side of the road in the parking lot that Saab people you can talk to, or talk to us.
Excellent. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much. I enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you guys.
All right, we'll be in touch.
Mark, Lee, thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
What a great guy.
That's awesome. Man, I swear we could just roll up into a pub and just talk for hours and hours over a couple pints of beer off of the stories he's got. That's cool.
Absolutely. So, hey, this weekend near my hometown up in Auburn, Indiana, about 20 miles away, is the Auburn Court Duesenberg Festival. They have this giant auction, but they're doing something kind of cool this year. This auto group that I belong to, all kinds of cars, exotic cars, muscle cars. We've been invited and are going to line 120 cars around the courthouse in Auburn. Mm-hmm. And I can guarantee you there'll be one Saab there. And I'm going to take my camera along, and we'll just talk to some people who see if they can figure out what this car is, because it'll be interesting. I bet a lot of people won't understand anything about him. So we'll just see what happens. I might share some of that with you next week.
Sounds like a fun time, Lee. Man, we're all adventures all over the place this week and the next weeks to come, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we'd love having you here. We'll see you again next Thursday night. And I think I'm pretty sure it's Ray K, who drove that 96. I think he did from Albany, New York Albany, Oregon to Albany, New York. So he's got some interesting stories to tell. We'll get together again next Thursday at 8 o'clock. Mark, good to see you again. We'll see you next week.
Good to see you. Thanks, everyone, for coming, dropping in and watching the show. It's been a good time.
Sure has been. We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.
Take it easy.